Spartanburg. Please come and see us. Yes, it's Spartanburg. Checks in the mail to me.
Go to Spartanburg.
I'm Rhodes Bailey, and welcome to the Asylum South podcast. With me today is Lauren Manning-Gandy.
Hello out there.
Chris Kinney.
Hey, gang.
Also with us in the studio are Jessica Lathran and Mike McCauley.
What's up?
And of course, Mr. Jones, pass me a bottle, Zach Thomas himself.
You'll never get away from that.
It's very trying.
Yeah. Today on the show, our guest is Chip Felkel, Republican political consultant that's known in South Carolina and nationwide. Also, we'll play a game called Guess That Rockin' Republican, and we'll discuss our weekend barbecue adventures. We've also got Noah Barker in the studio with us today. He's a friend of the show, and he handles all our social media stuff.
Woohoo!
Hello. Hey, Noah.
So, guys, I hope y'all had a good weekend. The sun was finally out, right?
Yeah, it was nice.
I smoked a pork butt yesterday, and it went great. I did get some jokes about rubbing butt, and then some injection jokes as well.
Yeah, I was making the butt injection jokes at about 7:30 a.m. on Saturday.
Don't inject your butt.
I in fact have had a butt injection before.
What
I was talking about your pork butt.
Hold on a second.
What's that? What's the story?
You've had work done below, or what?
It was actually a number 2 pencil.
Really?
In fact, yes.
I stand by my comment then.
This somehow came up the other day, but as a 15-year-old helper in Vacation Bible School, I was going all in a heartfelt rendition of, oh no, hallelujah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just love how, yes, I was, a story that is about to end in blood, guts, and pain and stitches started at Vacation Bible School. Sorry,
That's right.
Now,
That's right. So I'm wearing biblical garb and overall shorts, and that'll be relevant in a minute. But I'm sitting with the second grade class, and we are singing, just really emoting. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Praise ye Lord, praise ye Lord, hallelujah, praise ye
Oh my
Lord,
God.
hallelujah, praise ye Lord,
Someone
hallelujah.
shoot
They don't do this in Ohio.
Please shoot me.
Chris
Chris
does not understand.
We all know it.
You're telling me this doesn't happen at Mass, Chris?
No, look, in Catholic school and in the Catholic Church, it's Latin, it's very high church, right? There's none of this, like, campiness.
Literal campiness.
Literal
yeah,
campiness.
Vacation
Yeah,
Bible School camp.
Well, that's
It's not
important.
fun. There's no fun.
There's nothing fun about being raised Catholic. Nothing.
Let's just so you know, though, this involves a lot of up and down on
That's
Lauren's
right,
part, which
that's
is where
right.
I fear this is
That's
going.
right. You don't simply sing this song. You stand up and sit down, and really, you don't even just stand up and sit down. I mean, you spring up and you throw yourself back on the pew, and then whether or not you're singing "Praise ye Lord, Hallelujah," exactly,
Ups and downs.
Never mind that I'm 15 years old.
It's kind of like head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
That's
Like it's
right,
very
that's
vigorous.
right.
I'm thinking about stabbing you with a pencil right now. Okay.
So I'm sitting beside the Antichrist in the second grade class, and as it's time for us to throw ourselves back under the pew, all of a sudden I feel this sudden pain, and look at this kid beside me who's holding a yellow number 2 with about 2 inches gone off of the top of it, and his mouth is wide open.
Get out.
Yeah, so I sprinted to the bathroom and throwing off the biblical garb and the overalls, and I can't get it out. And then I have to go pull my pants down in front of every mother at St. Luke United Methodist Church. And yeah, my mom had to come pick me up and drive me to the doctor's office in her Nissan Altima. And I'm 5'8", as tall as I am now, all folded up in the back of the Altima.
Yeah, how did you?
Stomach.
On your stomach. That was
Yeah.
my question. How did you
Yeah.
sit on that wound? You had to
Yeah.
ride on your stomach.
Thankfully, it was Hartsville, not New York City.
And
We got there pretty fast.
luckily, you were 15, which is a totally easy age
Right.
to have to drop trowel in front of church staff to
In
show an
front of church
injury.
staff, and the doctor was my sister's best friend's dad, and our across the street neighbor, Dr. Jimmy Bell, a saint of a man. But
Do you
Yeah.
do you want to like get some Old Testament biblical revenge on the little miscreant who did it? Like, why don't you out him on the show right now? Come on, Lauren.
What's his Twitter handle? Come on.
That's right.
You know, I was pleased to see him in the police reports a few times over the years, but
Moved on from pencils to
like
knives.
it was like weed. I mean, something lame, but
Yeah, but so Bible study didn't take all that well for that
nah,
kid.
not so much.
Well, I mean, folks, you end the show on a high note. It doesn't get any better than that story.
How'd your butt turn out, Rhodes?
It turned out great, a lot less eventful.
Yeah, but you did inject it.
I tried it. I
Yeah.
tried a little injection, and I know that Zach is anti-injection, but I thought I'd try it for fun.
What were
We're
you
getting
What were you injecting?
I did a bit of apple vinegar and just a touch of soy. Yeah,
That sounds good.
yeah, but I'm more of a rub person.
Zach, why not? What you're shaking
Yeah,
your
we're
head?
getting a
There's
thumbs down
plenty
from
of
the
juice in that pork butt. It doesn't need any more liquid in it.
It was for the flavor, you know.
Yeah.
I've tried it several ways. I don't think I've injected the pork butt before. I inject turkey all the time.
Oh yeah, turkey needs it.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
us about your rub, Rhodes.
Well, I used a mix of a couple different commercial rubs, and then I used a little bit of mustard barbecue sauce that was vinegar as a bonding agent, but I'm really more of a vinegar person, just before I put more
So
seasoning on it.
like a paste almost. You made it pasty.
Yeah, what I did is I put rub on it dry. Then I took some Sheely's mustard sauce just a little way in the fridge and kind of hit it a little bit. And then in the morning I put more rub on top of it. And I also injected it the night before. You know. So it
I
turned out
noticed
pretty well.
you didn't bring any.
It's in the refrigerator right now. But I guess I should have thought that through, guys. Well. So I heard that Jessica had kind of an interesting weekend.
that she went to a magical place.
A magical
did.
place.
I went to Spartanburg, South Carolina yesterday. Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised, I have to tell you. I was not looking forward to it. The last time I was in Spartanburg was 2016, and there was a big Donald Trump bus in a parking lot and people lining up to go meet the candidate, and a dance competition that was really loud and crazy and annoying. So I was not really excited about going back to Spartanburg, but I was pleasantly surprised. Beautiful day. There's some good food. There was some public art. There were fountains. I was surprised at
Sparkle
how
City,
far
baby.
it has come
Yeah.
in 4 years. Now, I have a question though. So you say Sparkle City, but I kept seeing Hub City.
It's both.
So they get two names in Spartanburg.
I went to college in
The city,
Spartanburg.
What's
the
why-
city's so nice they named it twice.
What's the hub part? And
It
what's
has
the
something to do
sparkle
with
part?
the-
Just because it sounds like Spartanburg.
I think so.
Spartan's kind of the opposite of sparkle,
Well, they're
like
a bunch
by
of-
definition, right?
Yeah.
that's a
It's
really
like nothing
interesting.
there.
There's a bunch of Greek people there. That's where the Spartanburg thing's from.
Oh, okay.
And then, but the hub city is because of its location with respect to the railroads.
Oh, okay.
So unlike Columbia, it is actually designed to accommodate trains.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
No, I think
You don't ever get stopped by a train in Spartanburg.
No.
Right.
Columbia's railroad system is designed to get stopped by trains.
Exactly.
How else are we gonna be late for work?
Yeah, they went the other way. They said let's accommodate trains.
Apparently, they're all parking them here before they get to Spartanburg,
Yeah.
so those folks can get around. And
So they're accommodating trains and not cars. I see what you did there.
So, Jessica, what took you to Sparkle City?
Another dance function, actually. My daughter dances seriously, and so we were doing a ballet thing. Yeah, so we dropped her and went down and had some margaritas, maybe. Might have colored my view of how great Spartanburg was. I don't know.
But the thing about what's funny is, and just so you know, Jessica is a hip gal, always with cool footwear, and her husband's a rock and roller. And she just said on our group text chain, she said, I went to Spartanburg. It was great. It was emoji with heart eyes.
Two of them.
Yeah. And we were like,
Emojis with
wow,
heart
this is an
eyes.
incredible trip. So
Spartanburg.
Could have been the pandemic.
I was going to say, when you've been sequestered at home for almost 365 days now, Spartanburg was,
you had a great experience.
Epic.
So
It was.
everybody,
Go to Spartanburg.
Spartanburg,
That's
please
right.
come and see us. Yes, it's Spartanburg. Checks in the mail to me.
The more you know.
I'm petitioning to take this act on the road, and we're going to do it in the streets in Spartanburg.
Yes.
I like it.
You know?
Margaritas in
That's
hand.
right. Right in front of Mezcal. Go to Mezcal.
I was going to ask where you ate/drank.
So it was on West Main Street.
Okay.
And actually, they had the streets blocked off, and they had some of those big white tents out, I guess, for pandemic, friendly eating and drinking in the streets. And so there was lots of outdoor seating, and the weather was perfect for it. And so, yeah, we had some delicious Mexican-type food.
So if we're on a break next week, how many folks are headed to Spartanburg?
Try and stop through on the way to Asheville.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about going to Spartanburg, but I'm going to the beach instead.
Oh, really? Where do you go to the beach?
Holden Beach, North Carolina.
What's there? Anything?
A house that I can use for free.
It's always helpful.
Totally worth it.
Yeah.
Holden Beach is very nice, although we will not call Lauren out for not going to one of South Carolina's many beaches.
I knew that that's where your head was
Well,
going.
listen, I got to give
You're
the
such a
audience what they.
candidate.
I have to give the audience what they want.
Oh my god.
Chip Felkel is a veteran public and political affairs strategist in Greenville, South Carolina. He's the CEO of the Felkel Group, and he is an oft-quoted, trusted source for reporters and media outlets in South Carolina, nationally, and even internationally, having worked in Republican politics at the highest level for decades. Yes, folks, you heard me correctly. A Republican! Please give a big Asylum South welcome to our very first conservative guest, live in the flesh, here with us in person at the Jam Room in Columbia, South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chip Felkel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chip. Thanks for
And
being
I'm sure
here.
I'm sure your listeners are all going, there goes the neighborhood.
Well, we are so excited to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Let's start with a Chip quote from the Tim Alberta article. Haley is in the same position as all the other Republicans who jumped on the Trump train, said Chip Felkel, a longtime South Carolina GOP strategist. Some of this shit, you can never get clean from it. People will remember. So, Chip, where does the GOP nationally go from here?
It's a great question. I think there are three groups of Republicans. And South Carolina is not necessarily indicative of that. We have to be probably leans more towards one group than the other. But nationally, you've got three groups. You've got folks that think everything was great with Trump and the messenger was bad. They at least admit that. But they love all his policies and they think he was doing good work. And most of those people, by the way, think their election was stolen. You've got Republicans who were more establishment, who did like some of Trump's policies, but know and recognize the damage that when that kind of tone comes out of the White House from any president, that there are repercussions, a lot of peripheral damage in terms of let's look at it, the civility in the country, and that we can do better, and we need to turn the page. And then you have other folks who are trying to decide, and I'm involved with a number of those people right now, are trying to decide, can the GOP nationally be saved, or can a faction be created, if you will, within the party, because everyone knows how hard it is to create a third party and get on the ballot around the country, and that the only way to do there is to try to get small wins early, or try to get very targeted wins and show the viability of a third party effort if that's possible. The ironic part of all that is that you have that first faction I mentioned, and Lindsey Graham's doing his dead level best to be the leader of that. And then that middle group I mentioned, Nikki Haley, obviously in that Alberta article, has decided to separate herself from Trump by, God forbid, saying that perhaps we shouldn't have listened to everything he said. And then you got the other group that doesn't really have a leader and is in search of one.
And I noticed that since that article, Nikki Haley reached out to Mar-a-Lago to try and go down for a visit.
And was rebuffed, apparently.
Right.
Was rebuffed and said, "Jed, no room at the inn." So,
well, I feel like that would have been a bigger story this week for political nerds like us had it not been for Ted Cruz's Cancun adventure.
And I'd like to everyone who didn't see last night's cold open for Saturday Night Live, I urge you to watch it. So, in that regard, related to Ted Cruz with his braided hair coming back from Cancun. So.
I just feel really grateful to Ted Cruz for this because it's the distraction all of us needed in the pandemic, and we can all get behind just how ridiculous it was for him to do this, right?
Well, it's just hard to imagine the guy's been in the national spotlight as much as he has could be so tone deaf. And
Truth.
But obviously, both sides have people who can do tone deaf things. I mean, to her credit, AOC was down raising money for victims in Texas yesterday. And even more so, Jeff Duncan actually gave her kudos on Twitter for doing it.
I saw that.
I hearted that.
There is hope for America and hope for society in general, just
Right.
with that alone. So.
And for listeners that don't know, Jeff Duncan is congressman here in South Carolina. I think everybody knows who AOC is.
That's right. Well, speaking of hope for America, I mean, sort of follow up on the sort of three paths that you lay out, right? Is because it seems to me that the third party route, right, to commit to the third party route is essentially to go the way of the Whigs. I mean, it's to destroy the Republican Party. So if I were a Republican, which I'm not, but if I were, to commit to that path is to commit to destroying the party in my mind. Do you think of it differently?
I think the people that are of that mindset don't think the party's there now anyway.
Yeah.
Trumpism is not Republicanism. Trump is not a Republican in many people's minds. And many of his policies would suggest that with trade wars and tariffs and so forth. There's an element there that believes that the party itself has been completely bastardized by the last 4 years of Donald Trump, and that what is being billed as the Republican Party isn't exactly that. I would be one of those people. And to some extent, look, I think I sent this in a note to somebody yesterday. I believe that Obama, Lauren, I believe that there was a certain degree of I don't like to use this word, but cult personality with Obama. But Obama was much more of a Democrat than Trump was ever a Republican.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we moved further away from actual ideological, not purity, but ideological leanings or a core that could then base some of those things on. This was all about an individual who was a belligerent and look, Nikki Haley said Donald Trump was everything you don't want your children to be, and then she took a job and went to work for him in Washington. I mean, New York. I mean, I don't know. It's obviously you'll get a certain degree of angst and frustration out of my voice here today.
Sure.
But, because the party has to figure out what it wants to be, and not when it grows up. It's been around for a long time, but it has just taken this, and it'll be hard here, particularly a state like South Carolina, because you can say what you want, but parties aren't likely to change if they're winning. Mm-hmm. And South Carolina's Republican Party had a lot of success at the state and local level. Unfortunately, one particular race, as I look to my right, I wish. But
Here.
But why should they change right now? I mean, they picked up a majority, supermajority in the House, and picked up more seats in the Senate. So going and telling Drew McKissick, gosh, the party needs to make changes, he didn't have to listen to anybody say that.
Right.
However, as a national party, we hadn't won the popular election in forever. And you can't thread the needle on Electoral College every 4 years and expect to be successful. At some point, the party's got to go back and look at what was in that autopsy in 2012, which talked about more outreach to women. It talked about more outreach to Hispanics. It talked about, a host of issues that the party needed to address if it wanted to maintain a majority status and wanted to grow and expand instead of being the angry white man's party. And we just regressed.
And during the Bush years, I know the Bush folks and Karl Rove really worked hard to reach out to the Latina community.
Yes.
They really did. And then came sort of a really hardline immigration thing later. But I remember very clearly they were looking toward the future at that time.
Well, they absolutely were, and there were some very talented individuals that did that autopsy. And instead, we turned around and elected Archie Bunker for president. So I don't know how we expand that. I don't know when your first thing coming down the escalator is, rapists and murderers and going to build a wall, and when you need to appeal to Hispanics and that's going to be your lead.
Yeah.
it's like we had a big brain fart.
But Chip, do you have an explanation for how that happened? I mean, certainly in the 90s, Republicans your early aughts even sold themselves party of the big idea, right? But how exactly? I mean, the GOP seemed unified in its opposition to Donald Trump. People like Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley opposed him. They all lost. I mean, how did that happen? He clearly seemed to steamroll the institutional party.
They didn't know how to deal with him. They didn't. It was a whole different ball of politics or whatever you want to call it. He is a marketing genius. You got to give the guy credit for that.
Right. Yeah.
He tapped into what I believe. And look, Donald Trump, he'll go to his grave believing otherwise. But this was someone capitalizing on mistakes that the party had made over a series of years. We put too much emphasis on what K Street wanted, not what Main Street needed. And we set a stage for a lot of issues where Republicans, and then look, Democrats have interest groups, in particular interest groups that they appeal to on certain issues. And for a long time, I think Republicans went to the evangelical Christians on the issue of pro-life and said, hey, we're going to take care of this for you. Get us the votes. Just, we need your votes, but we'll deal with this. Or we need your votes on this issue and we'll deal with this. And after a while, those people got ticked off. And so they basically said, the hell with the establishment. This guy, we think he's rough around the edges, but it's going to be a change. And I would maintain the system did need a shock. It just didn't need electrocution.
Chip, South Carolina has had kind of an outsized role in our nation's history. I mean, dating back to John C. Calhoun.
It's amazing. I had a conversation with a good friend, Dan Addison, just the other night. I mean, we have placed personalities throughout American political history.
Calhoun, later on, Thurmond. It just goes on
Jimmy
and on.
Burns.
It's amazing. Well, you were mentioning earlier the two of the potential groups of the Republican Party right now. You've got the Lindsey Graham, next generation of Trumpism, and then you've got Nikki Haley, who is in sort of a different type of group. How did we end up here? It's so interesting that they're both in South Carolina, and they both have different visions of where the party's going, and people are looking to both of them on a national level right now, right?
Yeah, they are. And for the life of me, having been a longtime supporter and donor and public defender of Senator Graham, I cannot quite. There was a pretty good piece that Josh Dawsey, Gamecock grad, had in the Post last night. Probably posted today. I think I saw it 8:00 last night. Graham will say up close and personal, I'm trying to be relevant. I want to be in the room. Mm-hmm. And I think I think sometimes that flame is very bright, and people. He was attracted there with McCain, and he is. Maybe he thinks he's going to be the heir apparent to Trumpism.
I was going to say, to what end?
Yeah, I don't know exactly to what end, because it's very frustrating for people, who were very loyal supporters of Graham's, who aren't loyal to Trump, to watch this manifestation of this manifestation. Surely there's a negative word somewhere in there we could use, but this change. Because for those of us who don't think that Trumpism is the answer to future success, to see Graham embrace it so vigorously is certainly very interesting.
Hey, Rhodes, I heard you had a new podcast. Are you recording that from your house?
My house? My house? Am I a Neanderthal? No, I go to a studio, the Jam Room Recording Studio, right here in Columbia.
Really? Why the Jam Room?
Well, they've got professional-grade sound gear, great audio engineers like Zach Thomas, and the perfect setup for recording. From podcasts to the next great rock album, the Jam Room can help you with your audio recordings. I've recorded here with my band and other bands, and I can confirm you'll have access to the most amazing gear in the world right here at the Jam Room. All the latest and greatest equipment, and even vintage gear like early 60s tube amps.
You say they have great amps. What about a 1967 Vox AC30?
Yep.
What about Marshall Plexis?
Also, yes.
Well, do they have a mid-80s Roland JC120 amp?
Wow, Jessica, you really know your vintage amps. In fact, they do have a mid-80s Roland JC120 amp and a lot of other amps that'll make sure you can get the sound that you're looking for. Trust the experts at the Jam Room, located at 201 South Prospect Street, right here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Well, I thought it was weird that the night of the insurrection, January 6th, that he seemed to briefly have found a conscience and said, he said, "Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it to end this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president, but today, first thing you'll see, all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough." And then it was like, that guy evaporated.
And then he
said,
went back.
Well, that's
and
not
then
where the people are.
180 degrees. And in the Dawsey piece, Graham has said he's seen national polling and state polling that people felt very strongly. So I guess look, maybe there's a better way to explain this. Graham and his staff, for many years, were the pariahs of the Republican Party. His staff would have to sit for hours on end at executive committee meetings and listen to people bash their boss. They burned him in effigy in Pickens County at one point.
Wow.
And so, I'm thinking, hey, this sucks. If we embrace this, these people like us. They really like us.
And he's more popular than he's
and
ever
he's
been.
more
now.
popular in the party than he's ever been.
Interesting.
And you could make the case of, I want my life to be a little easier, and if I got to play this role, this is the role I'll play. Haley's a different question. She wouldn't be where she is today if Henry had not wanted to go to Washington. Plain and simple. And there was nothing in her resume to put her at the UN other than Henry McMaster wanted to be governor and Donald Trump wanted to please Henry McMaster. She got out early. She didn't get tarred and feathered too much by the Trump administration. She got out early. One would think that she was smartly resigned from that position before everything hit the fan, if it was going to. But she's straddling. She's trying to have it both ways. I like all the good, and we got to talk about all the bad, and I think that puts her in probably even a more precarious situation than where Graham finds himself.
How so?
Because nobody likes a straddler.
I mean, she clearly has presidential ambition and
think?
needs to get some distance from that.
Yeah.
I mean, what's wrong with that strategy?
Well, it may work. It depends on whether or not the former president's in prison or not this time later in the year. I mean, look, the Southern District of New York is getting ready to have a heyday. I mean, Mitch McConnell was right. This doesn't all necessarily end here.
Right.
And he is facing a number of legal challenges. So her separation may pay off. She may prove she may be prescient in that regard and
pulls the Band-Aid off now. And then
if she pulls it off now, and then she can say, I told you we kind of need to move on. Right. So
does Lindsey want to be president or not?
Every senator in the United States of America thinks they ought to be president at one time or another.
They look in the mirror.
It's kind of a given thing. You get elected to the Senate, and then you see yourself in the Oval. So that's kind of a given.
Well, it's fascinating because for years I thought Lindsey was at least sort of self-aware. But it's kind of like Steve Buscemi looking at himself in the mirror and saying, I need to be in a romantic lead with Nicole Kidman or something, Figuratively, I'm not picking on Lindsey's
or Steve
Steve Buscemi's an amazing actor. Yeah.
I sort of assumed that Lindsey's folks, if not Senator Graham, that the people around him understand that he has become so reviled nationwide that perhaps the more reachable perch is majority leader, and Trump can actually help him with that.
That may be the case. Look, they would tell you he is very reviled, but he just beat back $130 million.
Yeah.
And the only votes that count are the ones here in South Carolina, and so damn the torpedoes. Jamie Harrison threw everything he could at him, $130 million, all the, quote, out-of-state liberals, and defund the police and everything else, and that race got nationalized, and then that affected the Cunningham Mace race in Charleston as well. Mm-hmm. But they are more emboldened by that victory than they are. There's no wiping the sweat off their brow, going, we made it. They are emboldened.
Well, speaking of them being emboldened, I'd be curious to get your advice about what Democrats should do, because I'm reading this book right now by a guy named Mike Duncan called The Storm Before the Storm. It's about the late period of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Caesars. And the observations he explicitly makes about the parallels to our current moment is rising corruption, growing wealth inequality, political elites willing to engage in brinksmanship and one-upsmanship, and then the normalization of political violence. And, for Democrats as the party who's sort of become the de facto a party of the rule of law and normative politics, I feel like we have sort of the Batman dilemma, right? Batman doesn't kill people, right? He won't kill. There's one rule, but the Joker is this sociopath anarchist who will break every rule and try to get you to break the rule that you don't want to. So from Democrats' perspective, like, how do you engage an adversary, a party that is going down this path of destroying normative politics?
It's a great question. For one thing, you have to remove as best you can your Achilles heel that is used against you, certainly at local levels. You got to put here's where you got to be. Internally, you got to be the Joker, and that is with some of your own people. And not allowing them to create a narrative that makes you unacceptable to moderate, independent voters who aren't necessarily party affiliated, and that you have an alternative. One of the things I think over the years, at least in ad campaigns, it's been very interesting is that Democrats tend, at least my observation, tend to run ad campaigns that talk about issues, and how that affects everyday lives. And Republicans have always been pretty good at running on emotion, and running ad campaigns that talk about emotion and gut. And you got to get more you got to be more feely in some ways and less technical. You can do it. There's a group out there this last year that did a pretty good job doing some of that stuff. But you've got, I think, as a party. I mean, look at what happened in South Carolina. Jamie Harrison had $130 million. He came out of nowhere. Obviously, Graham's people were concerned at some point, and then the race became nationalized. And so what I think Democrats have to do a better job of, from my perspective, is understanding, finding a way to identify as problem solvers at a local level on issues, and problem solvers, or better yet, certain things just shouldn't be partisan. And focusing on the leadership of your candidates, the experience of your candidates, and not that they are some ideological purist that is going to shuck everything for the sake of party, which is kind of where my party's going to go.
Well, speaking of Republicanism, Chip, you've given us a lot of insight, but now I'd like to go something a little more frivolous. This is a little trivia game we're going to call Guess That Republican Rocker. Right.
Okay.
Now, Rhodes, I don't know if you heard this. Before the show, Chip was telling us he actually is a drummer.
Really? Really?
A retired drummer.
Well, we've got to set up. I don't know if we're mic'd for performances. Well, this is so. I made a joke on Twitter the other day. Henry McMaster made some rock and roll reference, and I just made a joke about Republicans talking about rock and roll and trying to be cool, specifically Governor McMaster, and I got a little bit of nastiness back. This is division. This is divisiveness. I was like, it's just a joke about rock and roll. And so I did a little research, and I dug back into rock and roll history, and as it turns out, there are indeed some Republicans that rock very hard in a non-Dave Matthews sort of way, which is high praise. and so I had a few trivia questions I wanted to try out if you're game.
I'm game.
Okay.
We haven't heard these either.
Yeah, that's right. And Zach is not allowed to answer him because me and Zach, it would be like asking what position Tom Brady plays or something. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Name this 70s rocker that has an affinity for makeup, horror-inspired stage shows, and the GOP.
Alice Cooper.
Yes. Nice. Okay. One, I love Alice Cooper. He didn't even hear the hint.
Yeah.
No hesitation.
The hint was after years of being misunderstood. He said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." But I didn't even need the. That was my dummy. Very good. And
I should let you know I was a DJ at one point in my life too. So
Alice Cooper. I love Alice Cooper. All right.
This is great.
This next one's super easy then. Name this guitar hero, NRA board member, and Michigander who has shot fully automatic weapons.
I thought these were going to be hard. Ted Nugent.
I didn't know you. Yeah. I didn't know we'd have an expert. Yeah. All right. Okay, this one. Well, this one is a little harder. It's multiple choice though. Which of the following famous punk rockers said, "I'm an ultra conservative. I'm not a goddamn Hollywood liberal"? Is it A, Joey Ramone, B, Johnny Ramone, Or C, Dee Dee Ramone? See, I told you I had one.
Oh, that's hard.
I know, it is hard.
Who are the Ramones? No, I'm kidding. No, I'll say Joey.
No, Joey was super liberal, and it was actually Johnny, the guitar player,
Okay.
who really innovated punk rock guitar playing, this sort of buzz saw, really simple stuff. But Joey was super liberal, and Johnny Ramone was a huge Nixonite, apparently.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and okay, last one. This one's pretty. I might have to. Okay, who is this supersized carnivorous singer? And I'm going to skip the really easy part. Who has acted in films like Fight Club and Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny? I'm not going to tell you his most famous album because that's a giveaway.
Supersized carnivores.
I think I know this one.
Okay, he had 2 hit albums that were like a decade apart, or actually more than a decade, and there was a part 1 and a part 2. You totally know this.
You definitely know this. I know nothing about music, and I know this. Supersized is your clue.
The album is Bad Out of Hell.
Oh, sorry. Meatloaf.
Yeah, Meatloaf.
Yeah.
All right,
Nice.
well,
That was strong.
I thought we were going to make a Paradise by the Dashboard Lights reference there or something.
I was,
Yeah.
I got to say,
It's just
Chip,
a family show.
Yeah. Very, very, very
I
impressive.
brought my son. It has to be a family show. Well, it's music is WKSP 1090
That's
Kingstree,
awesome.
South Carolina.
All right.
High school
That
days.
is
cool.
fantastic.
Very cool.
You get to be a DJ in high school? Man, you've been like the coolest kid in town. Man.
What I was cool with was my buddies' mothers who would call in for special requests and say, "Come by, I just made a pie."
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of teen
When
movies.
he was cooking barbecue, we talked about
We
that
like
before we
like to
record.
eat in Williamsburg County.
Yeah.
Okay, eating is important. Here's what I would say here, and I really, this has been fun, but we are just starved for just better leadership across the board, left and right. We are starved for individuals who will seek office for the right reasons, who will not immediately forget what got them there. Because if nothing else, the American public needs a heavy dose of non-cynicism so that we can actually be civil. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, I beat the drum a good bit about civility. It's one of the problems I had with Trump personally is that I do think the tone that comes out of the Oval Office is important. I will probably agree with only about 10, maybe 12% of what Joe Biden promotes as the President of the United States. And I will probably be fighting vigorously to oppose some of those things. But he's a decent man. He's a man of faith. He's a man of character. He's a man who puts great emphasis on his family and has been through a lot of trauma and tragedy there. At his core, I think he's a good person. And I think that is important in the Oval Office for the greater good of the United States, that people know that that whoever's in that Oval is a good person. And I never came to that conclusion about the former president.
Told y'all were going to like this guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good advice.
Chip, thank you so much for coming by. We could talk to you for a very long time.
Seriously.
I know.
You should do it over alcohol at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Chip.
y'all.
Thank you.
I want to spontaneously introduce a segment called Ask a Zoomer. And it just so happens that we have a Zoomer.
We have a Zoomer in the room.
right here. A Zoomer is
okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
The baby boomers are one generation, and then I guess we are somewhere between Generation X and millennials, but the new ones, the youngins, millennials are all in at least their 30s now. Now we've got Zoomers, and so Noah, I'm going to direct this question to you. Explain the new controversy about emojis. Apparently Zoomers think the laughing face emoji is lame. Is that right?
That is 100% true. What? Very lame.
The cry eye one? The
What-
crying eyes one?
What I don't understand is I feel like when new technology is introduced, like old people, including y'all, like
So harsh.
y'all
This
see
is Noah's last
not
appearance
invited
on the
back.
podcast.
That's right.
no, but y'all see new technology and you think, oh, this is hip and cool.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not. It's not. Big yellow ugly things that you put after a text message. It's not.
Well,
it's
how do you
not good.
convey what you're really feeling?
That's right.
With gifts.
A GIF, or GIF, however you want to pronounce it. That's true. That's a good one. I'm a fan of the
much work.
GIF.
I like those too, but my daughter, she's not in. When I send those, she's like, "That's so lame. I can't believe."
Oh, she's even younger than Noah, so in 10 years, she'll be telling us whatever Noah's saying is lame.
That's right.
This is true.
And
She'll
the
call
fact
Noah
is,
old.
Noah has a Joe Biden gif for every occasion.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do love a good Joe Biden
Respect.
GIF.
Well,
GIF GIF.
he's a very expressive man.
That's true.
What is so a GIF is acceptable. I've also heard the skull is good. Like you say, like somebody, if it's a funny joke, they'll send you a skull. Like I'm dead. That's so funny.
You just love skulls.
I do love skulls, but I'm still trying to reconcile this because I don't really see a skull as a response to a funny joke.
Well, let me tell you this: he's in this room. The hippest texter I know that's older is Mike, because I've never seen Mike use an emoji. He uses, at least with me, he's a fan of the LOL, which we do use on occasion.
Okay.
But we like the mystery. Are they mad at me? Is this a joke?
So things that are problems with text, like you can't strike the wrong tone, you say that actually makes it more fun.
Exactly.
I think by that criteria, I am the least fun.
I think you put an emoji in every message,
And
right?
exclamation
I do.
point.
You're right. It's good though. I like it.
And LOLs and a lot of fat yellow round faces with tears.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been Ask a Zoomer. Asylum South was recorded and engineered at the Jam Room Studio in Columbia, South Carolina. Sound engineering by Zach Thomas. Theme music by Rhodes Bailey, Jake Irwin, Evan Simmons, Spencer Collins, and Zach Thomas. Contributors are Rhodes Bailey, Lauren Manning-Gandy, Chris Kinney, Jessica Lathrop, and Mike McCauley. Also thanks to Noah Barker, who appeared here for the first time today. Find us on the World Wide Web at asylumsouth.com, at Asylum South on Twitter, and Asylum South on Facebook. If you liked Asylum South, rate the podcast so others can find it and share it with your family and friends. A special thanks to Chip Felkel, who was wonderful. We will be off next week for Lauren Manning's birthday, February 25th, so add her on Twitter. Happy birthday. Until next time, this is Asylum South.